The Northern Pack completely synced their morning patrols for this. It has nothing to do with relishing the chilly breeze or admiring the frosted territory. Instead, they gather purely to witness Bianca Winters endure her humiliating routine. Staring at the dirt, she treats every footfall as a desperate plea. 27 paces reach the old tree where the stonings began. 53 marks the spot for their vicious taunts. 112 brings her to those stubbornly locked barriers. Predictable rumbles of hostility surround her. What unbelievable nerve. Backstabber, get out. Trash whizzes past her head. A step down from last week's pebbles. Yet she remains perfectly stoic. Their malicious routine somehow offers a twisted solace. Anyway, her actual crimes warrant a much harsher penalty. Ahead lies an upward trail snaking across the very lands her bloodline ruined. Murmurs track her every move like dark spirits. The sheer audacity to return daily after her clan's betrayal. Hearing this, she tightly grips her medical satchel. That heavy kit keeps her grounded through this brutal, recurring ordeal. A patient requires her expertise, willing or otherwise. Above, the massive estate stands like a shadowy citadel at sunrise. Blocked glass and thick drapes conceal the interior, seemingly barring far more than mere sunshine. The leader hasn't stepped outside since the siege, sparking widespread gossip about his current condition, an affliction trapping him completely in endless blackness. Rejected for 14 days straight, she continues arriving anyway. Giving up simply isn't a choice. Deep humiliation chains her here, while immense remorse fuels her persistence. The guard sneers predictably as she nears. Words are useless now. Her purpose is glaringly obvious. Soon the stony-faced second-in-command emerges. Alpha Theo denies your visit again, Miss Winters. That rejection is entirely expected. Giving a curt nod, she pivots for the lengthy retreat. Those blackened panes feel like glaring eyes, guarding mysteries way beyond her comprehension. A child murmurs to his parent nearby. Why is she always showing up? She owes us for the devastation, the woman replies. Bianca maintains perfect posture going downward. Her stride remains completely unflappable. Their spiteful stares mean nothing. This routine will continue indefinitely. True redemption always demands absolute agony. What other way exists to compensate for shattering their entire world? Chapter 1. Theo receives reports of surging stray movements from the eastern border. His beta monotonically recites the briefing. Remaining perfectly still near the glass, Theo swallows a rising growl. An inner beast thrashes wildly, completely maddened by such prolonged captivity. It craves freedom and bloodshed, desperately needing to shred prey until this endless fury finally evaporates. That path is forever closed. Finances look better, Paige adds, smelling faintly of pure anxiety. Still, progress stalls whenever you insist on ruling from this room. Spit it out, he snaps, his rusted vocal cords sounding like a total stranger's. He senses his subordinate carefully tiptoeing around the issue. That Winters doctor showed up again. A guttural roar erupts, shaking the masonry. Hearing that surname triggers freezing dread, quickly consumed by blistering rage. The very people who ambushed them completely unprovoked. Those butchers crippled his community, weaponizing toxic blooms with surgical precision, cold and exact. 14 days of this. The beta pushes gently. Our medics are drowning, and her skills are legendary. Theo scoffs bitterly. Just like their legendary allegiance before the massacre, unwanted flashbacks violently resurface. Bloody shrieks and searing venom tearing through his bloodstream. That toxin permanently confined him to this shadowy prison, forcing him to fake power. The beta quietly mentions Silas dying. Theo just exhales. He knows, yet the devastation remains permanent anyway. He recalls that boy from their youth. Nobody predicted that pampered neighbor kid morphing into such a catastrophic threat. No one ever imagined a smooth-talking kid could harness enough dark energy to subjugate entire werewolf communities. Yet, it actually happened. By some twisted miracle, Silas unearthed ancient magic, brainwashing the region's deadliest fighters into slaughtering Theo's kind. Theo possessed an innate alpha presence that had constantly fueled the Dark Mage's bitter, obsessive envy. The Winter clan swears they were bewitched, Paige murmurs, noting that neighboring territories reported identical mass hypnosis incidents. "You actually buy that garbage?" Theo cuts in sharply. After a heavy pause, her response echoes quietly. "I think we desperately require assistance, Alpha. My isolation keeps them safe," he growls in a lethal whisper. "Should I just broadcast our crippled state to every hostile force out there? Maybe we just roll out the red carpet so they can slaughter us all?" A suffocating, leaden quiet fills the room. "This medic might—" The latch snaps shut, plunging the wounded leader back into his familiar, solitary abyss. Trapped inside, his inner beast snarls for bloodshed and liberation. Yet exacting vengeance demands a physical prowess he utterly lacks. Now, his survival clings entirely to stubborn arrogance, profound loneliness, and a simmering, endless rage. Let that northern medic freeze outside his borders. He would gladly die in the shadows before putting faith in her people. Chapter 2. Bianca. Back when she turned 20, she lost her heart to pure, radiant warmth. Or so her memory dictates. Sunlit, blonde waves, a gaze like clear summer skies that turned her legs to jelly, and a blindingly brilliant grin. Sneaking around her family's sprawling grounds, innocent touches quickly blossomed into deep, passionate embraces that promised a lifetime together. The man was Silas. She adored him completely, an adoration shared blindly by every single member of her clan. Free will was an illusion, however. Sinister witchcraft had seamlessly transformed the whole community into his mindless pawns. Through vicious sorcery, he manufactured their absolute loyalty and affection, forcing innocent shifters to shed blood for his personal crusades. Today, the hex lies shattered alongside his corpse, allowing a liberated Bianca to finally pierce through those falsely romanticized illusions. Staring at the sheer destruction he orchestrated, the stark reality of his monstrous nature demands massive reparations from her bloodline. Yet midnight brings chaotic, bleeding nightmares. The phantom warmth of her fake romance suffocates her until she jolts awake, gasping for air. In those disorienting, breathless seconds, the line between dark magic and genuine reality completely vanishes. Was all that profound passion entirely fabricated? Didn't her body legitimately thrill at his touch? Her pulse definitely hammered, right? Even her inner beast had hummed with contentment. Day after day, she scrutinizes her reflection, desperate to untangle genuine desires from magical deceit. At what point did his psychological control fade into her own willing complicity? Left without clarity, nothing remains but a crushing guilt and a desperate, burning drive to somehow seek redemption. Consequently, the moment her dad suggested diplomatic intervention up north, she eagerly volunteered. That stubborn leader ignores every single message, Jensen muttered 14 days prior. I honestly cannot tell if the man is a corpse or busy plotting our complete annihilation. Can you really blame him? Her fiery sibling, Kate, fired back defensively. Given the absolute massacre we committed there, intelligence confirms nobody has laid eyes on Theo Blackthorne for ages. Their patriarch pressed on. Whispers suggest he never recovered from our assault. Sending medical aid might bridge the gap. Send me. She blurted out the demand impulsively. Medicine is my specialty. Let me fix this. Not a chance in hell, Kate growled, irises flaring with protective amber. Your own mental scars are still bleeding. Yet, looking at the Alpha, she caught a distinct flicker of desperate optimism. Meanwhile, her sister's bondmate easily read the underlying. True recovery often requires stepping out of the darkness entirely. Exactly 14 days later, she finds herself glaring directly at the physical embodiment of that gloom. Theo's colossal estate towers beneath a bleak, overcast sky, staring blindly through shuttered glass. Does the legendary wolf actually lurk inside? Gossip insists he's brewing a bloody retaliation. Contrarian theories argue he perished long ago, suggesting a loyal second-in-command orchestrates an elaborate ruse simply to ward off opportunistic enemies. The gossip wildly conflicts. He's permanently paralyzed. He's orchestrating a massacre. Or perhaps the slaughter of his people drove him utterly insane. Ultimately, the undeniable fact remains. The infamous leader hasn't emerged in months. Occasionally, right before sunrise, her eyes play tricks, projecting a massive silhouette restlessly prowling across the uppermost balcony. Though it's entirely possible her traumatized mind is just conjuring phantoms out of old nightmares. The manor alone guards reality, locking its mysteries tightly behind heavy drapes and bolted barricades, mimicking the enigmatic silence of its absent lord. Chapter 3. Bianca. Shortly past dusk, the cheap inn's ancient landline blares out a harsh ring, shattering her heavy contemplation. There was literally only one individual tracking her down so late. Give it to me straight. What's the actual situation? Since Silas passed, that nervous tremor has become a permanent fixture in Kate's tone. Meanwhile, memories of flying stones and vicious, muttered curses flash through Bianca's mind. Just peachy, she lies with forced cheer. The hospitality here is simply unmatched. Bianca, her sister's reprimanding tone is unmistakable. Honestly, Kate, I'm surviving. Plus, I brought this on myself. I am not fragile, Bianca reflects. I can endure this. Anyway, have you laid eyes on Alpha Theo yet? No, he denies my requests, she hastily amends. But it isn't personal. He isolates himself from everyone. Crowds constantly camp outside his property, pleading for updates. His second-in-command manages the entire show. Is it possible? Her sister's voice drops to a breathless murmur. That the lethal botanicals Silas deployed actually killed him? Hearing the toxic plant referenced makes Bianca physically nauseous. I am still appalled we consented to weaponizing that stuff. Cultivating it is a savage practice. That poison secures our territory's dominance, Kate softly points out. It's exactly what drew Silas in. She blurts out the painful truth blindly. A profound quiet settles, thick with mutual trauma, breaking only when Kate bids farewell. Long past midnight, Bianca remains wide-eyed in bed, her anxieties swooping like scavengers in her skull. What actually befell their enigmatic leader? Why the extreme isolation? Is the man genuinely wounded or scheming retaliation? Phantom fingertips drift along her vertebrae, an intimate, skin-crawling sensation. Pondering such massive burdens for a frail Omega, she clamps her eyelids shut. Quiet. But you cannot deny the truth. The dead man's cadence drips with sweet disdain she mistook for love. You lack Kate's fire. You are terrifyingly fragile. Get out of my head. But you adored me, right? His chuckling coils around her like toxic vapor. You were completely devoted to me. She shoots up, pulse pounding violently. The bedroom is vacant. Silas is buried. Yet his specter fiercely grips her psyche, manifesting in every dark corner that feeds her deepest insecurities. Rest is impossible while his taunts reverberate through her brain, especially with so many mysteries left unsolved. Moisture pricks at her vision, swiftly morphing into intense, self-directed rage. She hasn't earned these tears. Her sister endured endless torment bearing Silas's reality, branded a lunatic by their entire community. All the while, Bianca floated through a bubble of happy delusions, completely entranced by his manipulation. Kate survived genuine agony and profound loneliness. If present, she absolutely wouldn't be throwing a pity party in cheap lodging. She would have proactively discovered a method to assist these wolves by now. Foregoing hesitation, she dresses hurriedly and vanishes into darkness. The sprawling estate pierces the starlit canopy, resembling a military stronghold. The midnight hour offers no mobs or mocking glares to evade, only deep darkness and absolute quiet. Navigating the forest hugging the property's rear, her pulse races while analyzing the sentry's patrol routes. She spots the specific casement perpetually left ajar, as if the massive mansion is suffocating and desperate for oxygen. Timing the watchman's pivot, she climbs the masonry with shaking hands, mentally berating her blatant violation of pack treaties. Yet her urgency prevails. She's prepared to plead with the leader to let her heal him, assuming the grave rumors are accurate. After sundown, the interior's atmosphere shifts, becoming empty and thoroughly ghost-ridden. Guided by pure instinct, recalling Paige's upward glances when questioned about the boss, it points to the supreme loft of the tallest spire, a twisted fable. The sheer idiocy of her crusade dawns on her only as she pushes the heavy oak aside into pitch-black nothingness. The intoxicating musk of male authority floods her senses, bringing brutal clarity. She illegally entered an opposing leader's bedroom while he slumbers. Honestly, surviving this blatant intrusion without being immediately slaughtered will require divine intervention. Identify yourself. The command rumbles from the pitch black, a coarse baritone laced with lethal intent. Lunar rays pierce the drapes, highlighting a hulking silhouette near the glass. His dominating aura suffocates the space like an impending tempest. Immense proportions and a brutal facial structure scream of untamed ferocity that ought to trigger her flight response. Rather than fleeing, a dormant spark ignites. The invisible tether strikes with kinetic force, inescapable, magnetic, and utterly horrifying. Her very biology strains toward the stranger, an uncanny familiarity vibrating violently through her veins. Mate. The primal decree bounces around her skull, settling into her skeleton, bypassing human logic entirely. The sheer inevitability of the magical bond washes over her, instantly flooding her veins with dread. You're devoted to me, aren't you, my sweet? Her abuser's ghostly whisper scrapes her consciousness. You would sacrifice everything. Getting to his feet, the pack leader advances on her, moving with the fluid lethality of a hunting beast. He grabs at the open space between them, hands trembling as if weighing the very atmosphere. Consumed by terror, Bianca misses the gesture entirely until his harsh voice cuts through. Identify yourself. Looming above her trembling form, he radiates dangerous, suppressed power, his chiseled visage completely intimidating. Lord, her fingers ache to map out his sharp jawline. It feels entirely familiar, a missing piece she has yearned for forever. A pathetic sound slips past her lips. Absolutely not. This has to be a trick of the mind, some twisted magic. Praying to shatter the illusion, she locks onto his gaze and instantly turns to stone. His stunning, tempest-colored irises are fixed on empty space, gazing right through her body. His features stay perfectly blank. Even with them standing inches apart, he shows zero awareness of her presence. It hits her like a physical blow. He actually cannot see a thing. The stranger has no vision, yet his palm stretches out to brush her cheek. A sickening cocktail of elation and pure terror washes over her. This is exactly the same intoxicating thrill she used to experience whenever Silas touched her. That previous bond was nothing but a cruel illusion. Suddenly, the transformation rips through her body unprompted. In a split second, she sheds her human skin, bolting away on paws to escape the suffocating mix of lust, dread, and deep humiliation. A sudden gasp echoes from the man behind her, yet she keeps sprinting. She dashes blindly until the suffocating anchor of their fated connection loosens its grip. She pushes onward until the haunting memory of her ex vanishes, letting the pitch-black forest consume her completely. Only a few more miles, she tells herself. Let me just get far enough away to clear my head and finally catch a breath. A metallic crunch shatters the quiet woods. Agony rockets up her right paw when jagged steel jaws clamp brutally into flesh. A shrill, panicked howl rips from her throat, bouncing wildly off the ancient timber. Struggling wildly only amplifies the searing torture in her muscles, and the device refuses to budge. God, please, no. The hunters are going to catch up. She'll be dragged right back to the estate, forced to face that terrifyingly magnetic stranger she absolutely refuses to rely on. Thick boots crush dead leaves nearby. A whole group is closing in fast. Desperation taking over, she pulls violently against the snare. Ignoring the blinding torture and the crimson soaking her coat, she fights like a wild thing. Escape is her only option left. Harsh yellow light slices through the shadows, and her pulse flatlines completely. Chapter 4. Theo. An intruder had breached his sanctuary. Rooted near the glass, he feels his inner beast tearing at his insides, rabid to hunt down the trespasser. Yet his severely muted instincts render any pursuit useless, a bitter, glaring proof of his current, pathetic state. Access to these quarters is restricted to precisely 2 pack members, Anne, who cleans the manor, and Paige, his second-in-command, currently away on a 7-day political trip. Even deafened and damaged, he'd instantly pick up on the older woman's dragging footsteps and constant, quiet singing. Without a doubt, an unknown party had been standing right here, a complete ghost who had bypassed every security measure as if the wards were entirely made of paper. He absent-mindedly rubs the wooden frame. A nervous tic developed right after that devastating ambush by their rivals shattered his reality. Ever since that lethal botanical toxin flooded his veins, permanently stripping away his vision before going after the rest of him. It systematically destroyed his supernatural hearing and smell, plunging him into a permanent void. Initially, he assumed he'd heal quickly, especially with his people bleeding from the assault. Therefore, he kept the handicap completely under wraps, quietly building a coalition to obliterate Silas and his rival pawns. However, as the timeline stretched on, his health tanked drastically instead of bouncing back. These days, picking up even the strongest odor is a massive struggle. He chuckles bitterly to himself. Being able to see is a total joke. He lives in pitch blackness, navigating a hollow reality built entirely out of faint noises and cold drafts. His right-hand woman firmly believes salvation requires following through on his political engagement to Olivia, the elite female who promised herself to him prior to the tragedy. Marrying her brings serious muscle to their ranks, yet they haven't crossed paths since the incident. There's zero guarantee she'll stick around once she uncovers his disability. She could easily run for the hills, ripping away their crucial backup. The inner monster growls at the prospect, having gone half mad from being locked away. His animal half craves a violent brawl to establish dominance, yet charging outdoors immediately exposes how utterly defenseless he truly is. Throwing a punch would broadcast his handicap to the world. Consequently, both human and beast rot quietly inside this lightless prison. Every 24 hours, his grip on sanity loosens. The predator takes the wheel, flooding his brain with raw, brutal urges. Very soon, the human part will die off entirely. He'll be reduced to a terrified, backed-up predator lashing out at everything. Honestly, it feels like an unavoidable fate. Eventually, the enforcers will be forced to execute him like some rabid stray. Until that bullet comes, he plans to spend every remaining second shielding his family. They are his entire reason for existing. The maid's recognizable tread pauses just outside his room, an odd reluctance in her pacing. A single reassurance from him would soothe her anxiety, yet he stays silent, as usual. Sensing the pity from people who previously worshipped his power simply reinforces his broken reality. Startling him, Anne suddenly shatters their customary quiet. "Alpha?" Her voice holds danger, trouble. "What happened?" "A rogue triggered our boundary snares." Theo scowls. A snared wolf. Surely the trespasser from his quarters. "Identity?" he demands. "Female Omega," Anne answers. Her scent profile is unfamiliar, a stray. Theo's thoughts immediately spiral. A stranger who bypassed his security. What if she flees and exposes his secret? Is she secured? Affirmative. Anne shuffles nervously. But she's fiercely warding everyone off, biting and growling. He almost summons Paige before recalling the missing ladder. Curses. "Need me to grab another pack member?" Anne offers. Theo strides restlessly, inner beast agitated. Any underling would wonder why their leader hesitated. Another subordinate might release her and spot his affliction. "I will manage her." "Alpha?" Shock tinges her response before she masks it. The outdoor trek proves agonizing, each stride risking exposure. Every motion highlights his frailty. Anne subtly steers him using faint coughs, though his ego stings at every prompt. Suddenly, the brisk evening chill kisses his flesh, momentarily broadening his universe. The wind's woodsy, liberating scent calms his beast. "Over there, sir." The snared animal remains invisible to him. Rotting soil masks her aroma, yet her agonized snarls and frantic thrashing sing the anthem of cornered prey. Theo advances, projecting his dominant aura across the clearing like an impending tempest. Her snarling escalates, rivalry clashing with rivalry. "Submit," he rumbles. She snaps in retaliation, chains rattling against her thrashing. Theo approaches with calculated strides. "I commanded submission." A quiet whine pierces her aggression. Reaching forward, his fingers finally brush her shuddering pelt. He grips her nape, exerting an unyielding, grounding force. "Good girl," he whispers, softening his pitch upon sensing her surrender. "You are staying right here." Her remaining resistance evaporates near the snare. He flexes his hold, bracing to assert ultimate control. Surprisingly, heated wetness bathes his knuckles. "Don't move," he orders while Anne unlatches the mechanism. Rather than resisting, she maintains her tender kisses while the iron jaws spring apart. His inner creature preens at her total yielding, delight surging from the minor triumph. "Is she mobile?" he inquires. "It's a severe gash," Anne notes. "She requires assistance." Instinctively, Theo hoists the animal up. Light as air, she tucks into his embrace dependently, exhaling heat across his neck. His beast purrs, thrilled to feel needed again. A tiny validation of his lingering authority after months of concealment. "Take her indoors," he decides, pivoting toward the manor, tracking Anne's gait and the creature's rhythmic pulse against him. He ought to interrogate this mysterious captive. Yet currently, he just relishes a creature's comforting heat, one oblivious to his damaged state. Chapter 5. Bianca. Resting within an apex predator's grasp ought to petrify her. She fully comprehends her trespassing crimes. Violating his inner sanctum risks lethal retribution upon uncovering her true nature. Her frantic pulse begs her to fight, to escape, to stop resting defenselessly against a dangerous pack leader. However, her traitorous frame softens against him. Warmth spills from him, while her fundamental instincts ache for his closeness, craving deeper connection. His anchoring hold actually dulls her mangled limbs' agony. "Pull it together," she mentally chastises. Traversing vacant corridors, Theo trails Anne seamlessly. Blindness notwithstanding, he breezes through thresholds effortlessly, knowing his territory intimately. He never falters or pauses. His embrace remains rock solid. They step into a servant lounge filled with threadbare couches and utilitarian counters. A massive timber dining fixture commands the space, where Theo delicately deposits her atop its scratched finish. His palms hover briefly, assessing her posture to keep her wound off the timber. "Identify yourself," he commands smoothly. "Why infiltrate my lands?" Bianca pins her ears backward. She ought to shift into human form. She needs to confess her healing intentions, having spotted his nightshade toxicity that mirrored Kate's previous venomous affliction. She needed to confess that she held the cure, recognizing every single sign, from his clouded vision to his muted instincts. Yet whenever she tried to pull her two-legged shape forward, the ghost of Silas echoed in her head. "Oh, absolutely. Go ahead and shift," his phantom mocked. "Spill your guts about a mate pull that is completely one-sided. Have fun throwing yourself at another guy who could not care less." Terror tightened around her windpipe like a vice. Even without his sight, the pack leader clearly demanded answers. She desperately wished she could just submit and take human form. But how would he react to her naked truth? Or, terrifyingly, how would she handle it? Dread coiled in her chest. "Do not even try playing the part of an ordinary stray," the boss stated dryly. Playing dumb was never her goal. Easing back into her own skin was exactly what she aimed for. Yet her body simply refused. Squeezing her eyes shut, she pushed toward her bipedal instincts, hoping to suppress the beast. The animal remained firmly in control. "Shift, now," Theo ordered. She let out a high whimper, squirming across the metal surface until agony flared in her injured limb. Once more, she clawed wildly for her humanity, only for her ex's cruel taunts to amplify. Or maybe you are still carrying a torch for me, darling. Is that the problem? Too embarrassed to admit you are still mine? A miserable cry slipped past her fangs. Being trapped in fur was utterly humiliating. Transitioning had always been as easy as breathing until now. She felt absolutely worthless, hitting a brand new rock bottom. "Boss," Anne interrupted, breaking the heavy silence. "The sweet girl is paralyzed with fright." "I am perfectly aware," he barked before sighing. "Figuratively speaking, anyway." His palm settled between her ears once more. Against all logic, she melted into the caress. As his digits combed rhythmically through her coat, a deep-seated knot in her soul finally loosened. "She is shaking like a leaf," he muttered quietly. "Maybe terror is blocking her transition, sir," the older woman offered gently. "Fear-locked?" His thumb rested heavily on her pulse point. "It is rare, but documented." The matron stepped closer, radiating a warm, maternal energy. "She might just need a minute to breathe." "So you want to house an unknown rogue?" Grounding herself in his physical warmth and the deep bass of his chest, the trapped girl felt a bizarre sense of peace. Humiliation took a back seat to pure relief. Drowning out her ex's mental poison was her only priority. She would take any comfort available. "We can hardly set her loose before discovering her motives," the beta woman argued. "Right, boss? I guess that makes sense." He hesitated, his stroking coming to a sudden halt. "Do we call a doctor for that wound?" Hearing that medical title froze her completely. She was the doctor. This whole trip was meant to cure his ailments. "These creatures mend quickly on their own, boss," the older female advised, watching her blind leader carefully. "Yeah," he coughed awkwardly. "Good call, obviously." The moment his warmth vanished, the furry patient let out a soft groan and nudged his general direction. Instantly, his palm found her pelt again, bringing an involuntary sigh of contentment from her chest. "Should I prep the lower cells, sir?" his caretaker offered. "The cellar?" he snapped defensively. "It is completely pitch black down there." "It is the only secure lockup we have." Silence stretched thick across the medical room. "True." "Fair enough." His agreement sounded hollow as he scooped her up, mindful not to jostle her battered leg. A tiny spark of optimism ignited in her chest. Perhaps solitude would finally break the mental block keeping her trapped on 4 legs. Maybe then she could untangle this absolute disaster. Chapter 6. Theo. The rhythm thumping against his shirt felt entirely wrong, way too rhythmic for a captive. Not nearly frantic enough for a trespassing rogue. His inner beast woke from a months-long depression, hyper-focused on the delicate bundle he carried. Any normal prisoner would be thrashing, snapping jaws and clawing for freedom. Yet she simply melted into his frame, puffing hot air against his collarbone in an open display of absolute faith, or a brilliant counterfeit of it. A dangerous snarl tugged at the corners of his mouth. "Take a left, sir," his beta guided softly, leading him toward the subterranean steps. His primal side seethed at the indignity of needing a seeing eye guide. Nevertheless, the soft burden pressed against his heart pacified a vicious, untamed corner of his soul, the exact shadow that had been pacing his psyche ever since those toxins stole his vision. Suddenly, a muted fragrance drifted past his damaged senses. It was faint but intoxicatingly sugary, laced with a terror that made his lungs ache. His inner predator rumbled with abrupt agitation, not aimed at the strange female, but triggered by her distress, enraged by how utterly unnatural her panic felt. "The lower levels have reinforced cages," his companion babbled on. The blind leader tuned her out completely, his mind obsessing over a single riddle. What was keeping her trapped in fur? What kind of horror breaks a shifter this entirely? Unless it is a ruse, a clever trap set by... The delicate weight shivering against his chest shatters the thought. making him pull her closer without thinking. His inner beast roars to the surface, fierce protective instincts battling months of bitter suspicion. He shouldn't trust this. He shouldn't trust a damn thing. Even so, he commands, "I will keep her in my personal suite." The surrounding shock is suffocating. Nobody else is capable of guarding her the right way. The excuse slips out before his brain catches up, desperately trying to justify his animal side's frantic claim. The holding cells are too distant. Should she attempt to flee, but Alpha, your privacy, I will detect every shift. He pivots instantly, navigating the memorized path to the upper floor. Keep your enemies within reach. Enemies. His beast viciously growls at the label, rejecting the obvious falsehood. This delicate being carrying scents of sugar and terror, shivering in his hold without fighting back. She might be a mystery, but a danger is certainly not one. "Whatever you command, Alpha," Anne murmurs softly. Theo marches off before the woman can voice her lingering doubts. Before doubt can poison his own mind, the predator beneath his flesh prowls restlessly, a chaotic blend of anxiousness and deep craving. They have been locked away for what feels like ages, turning more feral by the hour. Yet an invisible tether drags him toward this enigmatic newcomer, defying all logic. The solitary truth he accepts is that throwing her into a pitch-black cell feels completely impossible now. Chapter 7. Bianca. Her pulse hammers wildly while Theo guides her into his bedroom, even if she secretly acknowledges this scenario perfectly benefits her. The exact moment he passes out, "I am making a run for it," she vows silently. Nevertheless, trailing the Alpha into his most intimate sanctuary sends a wave of nervous static rippling through her coat. Anne lingers right at the threshold once Theo sets Bianca on the floor, her watchful gaze thickening the already tense atmosphere. "Is there anything else you require?" she questions stiffly. "Nothing, thanks," Theo answers dismissively, hurrying to shut the heavy wooden barrier. Then the man merely freezes in place, fingers gripping the brass handle, looking completely lost in his own territory. "I honestly have no idea why I just did that," he whispers roughly, treating the admission more as a personal confession than a statement. Exhaling heavily, he navigates the space to collapse into a worn armchair, dragging his palms tiredly across his rugged features. Bianca observes the man quietly, caught off guard by his absolute exhaustion. It seems the moment the distraction fades, his heavy burdens immediately crush him again. Desiring to express some quiet appreciation for his protection, mixed with a gentle wave of compassion, knowing her own bloodline caused his terrible wounds, she steps softly across the rugs and curls up directly beside his feet. "You will bolt the instant I drift off, right?" he questions out of nowhere. The inquiry sounds incredibly gentle, lacking any anger. A sharp pang of remorse hits her heart. That was her exact strategy, yet he somehow managed to read her mind. She rearranges her weight awkwardly on her padded feet. "I do not even need my vision to know you are there," he murmurs, his tone agonizingly hushed. Bianca automatically lets out a huff of disbelief, the noise sounding bizarre as it rumbles through her canine vocal cords. "Ah, you figured it out." Theo seems to deflate even more under the weight of it all. His sheer aggravation spikes his natural aroma until it completely overwhelms her. Closing the distance between them, she presses her snout tenderly against his side, offering the only comfort her animal body allows. She desperately attempts to push into her human skin, but fails miserably as a tragic whimper leaves her. "What if I am trapped as a beast forever?" "You're shaking," Theo states quietly. Getting to his feet, he crosses over to the stone hearth, dropping to his knees to blindly search for kindling. Bianca stares as his fingers fumble awkwardly across the bricks, unintentionally knocking the carefully stacked timber to the floor. Cannot even manage a simple fire anymore. The self-deprecating mutter is faint, yet it mercilessly pulls at her heartstrings. Oh, for the love of the moon. Committing to her choice, she steps up and gently bumps his knuckles right toward the correct pile of kindling. Theo freezes entirely for a split second, terrifying her into thinking she overstepped a dangerous boundary. "Fantastic work, Bianca. Way to ruin the mood." However, his tense muscles suddenly loosen, letting her snout direct his movements. Working as a team, they build the pyre, and she points him toward the heavy metal lighter on the shelf. The quiet between them feels incredibly safe. This mundane chore forges a surprising, intimate bond. Once the flames finally catch, Theo simply drops onto the rug right next to her paws. He keeps his mouth shut, yet the heavy stillness wrapping around them feels absolutely perfect. Bianca feels the heavy pull of sleep, watching the orange embers flicker. The popping logs alongside Theo's rhythmic exhales weave a hypnotic, comforting lullaby. My injured limb barely aches at all now, she registers vaguely as her consciousness slips away. Upon opening her eyes, the hearth holds nothing but dying ashes, and pale dawn sunlight spills softly across the bedroom floor. For a brief heartbeat, panic clouds her mind. Where the hell am I? Then her gaze lands on Theo, knocked out in his armchair, bringing all the memories rushing back. Moving her limbs, a sudden shock hits her. She is human once more, and entirely bare. Thank heavens. A tiny sigh slips past her lips unbidden, causing Theo to shift in his seat. Crap. Pure dread roots her to the spot, eyes wide and utterly paralyzed as she stares. Her pulse hammers with enough force to surely rouse him. Stay completely still. Hold it in. Silence your mind, her inner voice screams. Only after endless, agonizing minutes does she finally dare to shift. Yet that tiny flinch draws a low groan. The moment his eyelids part, she's already shifted, heart hammering against her ribs. A low rumble vibrating in her chest is the only clue she's wearing fur again. You stayed, the man notes softly. Exactly. Deep down, a sinking feeling tells her this animal skin is going to be permanent for a while. Chapter 8. Bianca. Water cascades behind the bathroom door while she battles to force the transformation. Push harder. Just do it. Her entire body shakes from the exertion, yet Silas's cruel taunts continuously derail her focus. Ready to become a slave to a spell once more? That phantom whisper chills her blood, instantly shattering her concentration. I felt nothing for you, the ghost mocks, and he'll be exactly the same. Those are her toxic ex's echoes, but tragically, part of her completely believes them. Every primal urge dragging her closer to this new stranger feels exactly like her last romantic prison. Destiny's supernatural tie suffocates her chest like iron shackles, triggering severe hyperventilation over losing her freedom again. He finally steps out, water dripping from his messy locks, and angles his face. Want some food? Her stomach rumbles, prompting an eager yap. He chuckles softly. Okay, and will drop by shortly. Is his entire existence reduced to helplessly relying on staff? A heavy wave of pity washes over her. Observing his rigid posture, the memory of his maid steering him around clicks into place with tragic clarity. Stripped of his vision and feral instincts, naturally the Alpha requires assistance just to walk these halls. Sorrow tightens her chest at his massive loss of independence. Losing the ability to manage simple daily tasks must be maddening. An involuntary, sympathetic whimper leaves her snout. I get it, he sighs, completely misreading her emotional display. I'm starving as well. My apologies. Resolving to act, she trots over and lightly presses his palm against her spine. Let's walk, she commands silently, steering toward the exit. The scent of his repressed beast is overwhelming. Rotting inside this bedroom is toxic for both their spirits. Her current shape prevents magical mending, but mobility is a start. You're asking for a stroll? He questions, sounding tense. Acting as his eyes, she herds the man directly to the threshold, giving an encouraging shove. Doubt and irritation war across his features. She simply plants her paws, unbothered. Whatever, he mutters darkly. Stepping into the corridor brings her quiet satisfaction. She glues herself to his leg, offering a solid foundation for his unsteady gait. Taking up a new career in security, Tiny? A rare, playful lilt lightens his deep tone. Two sharp yaps voice her utter indignation. Not a pet, pal. Taking that as a negative. His smug grin is basically audible. Hitting the kitchen, the housekeeper gapes at their fluid teamwork. Her terrified scent has significantly faded. The beastly exterior remains, however. Creasing his forehead, he addresses her plainly. "Can't shift back?" A single bark confirms it. "Any clue why?" A double bark denies it. She spends the afternoon relentlessly forcing him to patrol the estate. Without access to her magic, physical activity is her only medicine. His inner predator is desperate for an escape. His willing cooperation proves exactly how badly he needed out. Yet, whenever she points him toward the main entrance, he violently objects. "The pack cannot witness my weakness," he confesses darkly once they retreat to his private sanctuary. "Nor can I have you fleeing to spread rumors." Later, jolting awake with bare skin instead of fur, her mind races. Now's my chance. A perfect getaway. The temptation screams through her skull while creeping slowly toward the hallway. Her disappearance is definitely raising alarms by now. Kate will absolutely burn the city down waiting for a text. Her injury is completely cured. Lingering here is madness. Shaking fingers hover agonizingly over the cold brass knob. A simple twist buys her freedom. Then her gaze falls upon the bed, catching the raw, heartbreaking agony twisting his unconscious features. The Alpha is trapped in a mental nightmare, completely unmoored. He requires saving, which is the entire reason she crossed his threshold. Forget the cosmic matchmaking or this intense, completely one-sided attraction she's battling. This mission is strictly redemption. It's about squaring her debts and repairing the damage done to his territory. She drops to her knees next to his seat, trembling fingertips lightly finding the sides of his head. Magic pulses from her skin. A mellow, sunlit heat hunting down the jagged friction between man and beast, coaxing them into harmony. Her sole purpose was fixing him, and she'd succeed. Chapter 9. Time blurs for Bianca, settling into a peculiar yet comforting daily cadence. Sunlit hours keep her trapped in fur and paws. Shifting around Theo proves absolutely impossible. Her two-legged shape only resurfaces under the cloak of midnight, while he slumbers. It's baffling, yet she cherishes the chance to mend him. "Sarah?" Theo murmurs at dawn, hell-bent on uncovering her identity. She chuffs quietly at the attempt. "Margaret." Another soft exhale of denial follows. "Patrice." That provokes an indignant rumble, sparking his bright, authentic laughter. Okay. What about Brunhilde?" His daily guesses grow increasingly ridiculous, yet the affection in his tone is undeniable, transforming their wordless bond into a game. She nudges his thigh indignantly, only fueling his rich chuckles. Such light-hearted sparks happen constantly now, rare treasures breaking up their tranquil routine. She navigates the manor with certainty, and his reliance on her deepens. By day, Theo recounts pack lore, sticking to joyful recollections initially, like moonlit summer bashes with the entire clan, or tripping into the lake during his sister's impromptu dance lessons. She absorbs it all, etching into her mind each grin that brightens his features over those golden days. Yet one evening beside the roaring hearth, his tone darkens. "I should have caught on sooner," he murmurs. "The monster Silas was turning into, way back when we were kids. He seduced folks merely to break them later. Thought it was hilarious." His fists tighten. He exploited their flaws, weaponized their loyalty. And I was completely oblivious. Those flashbacks strike her like heavy punches. That charismatic grin, his faux empathy, the way he twisted her own secrets into daggers. Her pain must be obvious, as his fingers find her pelt, petting soothingly. From then on, she anchors her chin on his thighs during their nightly chats, soaking up the quiet intimacy. The hours drift by in peaceful currents. She pushes him to roam the corridors, witnessing his self-assurance build step by step. His aroma shifts as well, growing robust and deeply feral, proof her magic is taking hold. Eventually, he consents to stepping outdoors, demanding absolute assurance they'll remain unseen. Prowling on four paws, they map the vast grounds. His strides steady as raw awareness trickles back, tailing her through primal urge rather than physical contact. It tastes like absolute liberation, like salvation. Near the hearth at dusk, he presses his muzzle deep into her coat, taking a massive breath. His fragrance envelops her, heady, dark, and utterly perfect, making her ache to dissolve right into him. It's been lifetimes since she experienced such profound security and calm. Suddenly he mutters, tone gravelly with agony, detailing the winter ambush. The toxins, the blistering fury he still harbors toward her bloodline. They actually dispatched their little girl to cure me, he rasps, choking on a cynical chuckle. Like that could ever erase their crimes. Past midnight, clothed in her own skin, she trembles while pumping magic into his veins. Would he view this as fresh treachery? This whole facade, lingering in his sanctuary, soothing him, entirely masking who she truly was. He'll despise me, she realizes with a crushing chest pang. He'd never pardon this. Running away is her only logical move, yet gazing at his serene features, brushing knuckles over his jawbone, a shocking epiphany hits. Walking away is impossible. It's too late. That reality anchors into her ribs like solid lead. Amidst the hushed whispers and comfortable voids, woven through guiding fingertips and mending magic, she had irrevocably fallen for him. No freaking way. He'd refused to be optimistic, despite the agonizingly slow recovery of his other instincts. Day by day, his sense of smell sharpened, particularly when shifted. To him, that solitary gift seemed like an unearned miracle. Yet this situation was entirely new. He could actually trace his own fingertip in the gloom, catching the ember's gentle amber reflection dancing on the walls. The familiar pitch-black void had finally broken. These were simply ordinary nighttime silhouettes. Hope surged through him as a strangled breath escaped his lips. Yet an entirely different sensation quickly hijacked his focus. A radiating heat and tranquil energy rested right next to him, that unforgettable fragrance. God, he recognized her aroma better than his own skin at this point. A crisp, sugary breeze reminiscent of early springtime. It smelled like pure vitality. The proximity was so intoxicating that a deep rumble of pleasure vibrated in his chest before he glanced right and completely froze. A slumbering figure shared his mattress, yet she lacked fur and paws. Blinking past his hazy eyesight, he spotted smooth, metallic blonde locks spilling over the cushions, illuminated by the dying embers. His gaze dragged along the fragile slope of an exposed collarbone, where pale flesh shimmered faintly in the dimness. Despite his clouded vision, she was an absolute masterpiece, sending a profound pang straight through his ribs. Could this truly be his secret guardian? Undeniably so. That specific fragrance was permanently imprinted on him. In her mortal skin, she appeared incredibly youthful and fragile. The rhythmic rise and fall of her chest mirrored her soothing aroma. Being this near made him salivate, rousing his inner beast with a shocking ferocity. He burned with the urge to reach out, to memorize her jawline, and weave his hands through those sunny strands. Stopping short of making contact, he pulled back. Sure, she was draped over his covers, and petting her animal side was normal, but this felt entirely different. She never consented to a physical connection like this, nor did she intentionally reveal her human guise to him. Even knowing that fact failed to extinguish his burning desire. The beast within him roared, craving to claim, guard, and embrace her forever. Such a violent emotional response genuinely stunned him. Moving with cautious stealth, he slipped away from the mattress. Even with his eyes still failing to focus properly, he maneuvered around the furniture effortlessly. His recovered auditory and olfactory senses easily compensated for the lingering blind spots in his gaze. Quick, heavy treads echoing in the corridor signaled that Anne was rushing his way. Anxious to keep his bedmate undisturbed, he intercepted the maid at the threshold, silencing her shocked gasp with a swift finger over his mouth. Stepping near, she muttered about a visitor waiting by the entrance. He quietly dismissed it until dawn, only to feel her fingers dig sharply into his bicep. "That won't be possible," she replied in a hushed, terrified vibration. The sheer panic in her demand spiked his adrenaline. Tearing his gaze away from the slumbering beauty, he trailed the servant out of the manor toward the boundary wall. A silhouette swathed in fabric materialized from the foggy gloom. Despite his compromised eyesight, he easily recognized a tiny, delicate frame. Yet his heightened instincts revealed vital details. It was a female, her aroma saturated with pure rage, terror, and an unfamiliar element. A sudden gasp left him as the truth dawned. The stranger was carrying a baby. Judging by the vicious snarls ripping from her throat, she was absolutely livid with him. The second he approached, she spat his alpha title like a curse, her trembling tone laced with unyielding iron. "What in God's name did you do to my sibling?" Chapter 11. Bianca. Consciousness returned to her in sluggish waves, fighting through a cocoon of absolute comfort and bliss. Enveloped by his intoxicating musk, she lay tangled in blankets that reeked of their combined essence. A rumbling vibration of joy resonated from her inner beast. This was home. She couldn't recall the last time she experienced such profound security. Without thinking, she let out a quiet murmur of absolute delight. Hearing her own vocal cords jolted her wide awake. She was lying unaccompanied on his mattress, completely human. The truth crashed into her. First came the startling sensation of bare flesh pressing into his bedding, followed rapidly by mounting dread. Her animal side whimpered, utterly bewildered. He had literally never abandoned her side like this. Where did he go? It had been weeks without a single separation. A crisis had to have happened. Otherwise, what drove him away? Then the grim possibilities piled up, making her stomach drop. Had he caught sight of her actual body and fled? Did one reckless sigh completely destroy her elaborate disguise? Her brain raced through terrifying scenarios, each darker than the previous. Her lies were out in the open, leaving her completely defenseless and stripped of her cover. Gripping the linens tightly, she forced air into her lungs, fighting to maintain logic while pure terror threatened to drown her. Suppose he figured out she transformed. He was still blind, correct? Plus, the Alpha had never crossed paths with her real identity before. He had no idea what she looked like. No matter what secrets he uncovered, she would find a way to spin the truth. Maybe coming clean was an option. Yet that notion vanished just as rapidly as it appeared, coating her tongue with sharp, lingering regret. He absolutely despises her bloodline, loathing her simply because of her surname. Should he find out about her lingering presence, the secret treatments, and the constant deception, their entire bond would instantly disintegrate. Banishment was a certainty, followed by permanent exile from his sight. That terrifying prospect infuriated her inner beast while drowning her human consciousness in absolute humiliation. A jagged, agonizing whimper lodged tightly in her windpipe. Such fury could easily drive him to sever the hard-won truce established with her dad. Yet political ruin meant absolutely nothing compared to the devastating image of his gaze staring at her with pure, unadulterated heartbreak. A sudden jolt of pure terror made her realize she had transformed back into her beastly shape. Heavens, speaking was impossible now. Did he spot her? Where did he disappear to? How much did he uncover? Stumbling out in a complete fog, she began tracking him down. A pathetic whimper escaped her muzzle, her inner beast craving its partner to repair the damage. Picking up his deep timbre below, she quickly headed downstairs. Suddenly, Anne materialized right there, blocking the way. "Back off, pup." Gleaming with pure glee, the servant smiled fiercely. "The leader can handle you afterward." Every single syllable she happily delivered sliced straight through the listener's soul. His future wife arrived. Ice flooded the shifter's veins. A bride? Impossible. He belonged exclusively to her. That had to be a misunderstanding. She arrived today alongside Paige. The servant's chipper attitude felt utterly crushing. "They are finalizing their permanent bond today. Lady Olivia and our leader pledged themselves 2 years ago. It is finally happening." Absolute disbelief and profound devastation violently shattered the listening shifter's mental state. Karma had finally arrived to penalize her prolonged lies and cowardly silence. He was slipping away forever, fracturing her soul with every single pulse. Pure instinct took over, sending her sprinting around the maid and crashing straight into the parlor. Stopping this disaster was mandatory. She needed his eyes. Losing her destined partner was absolutely unacceptable, especially not today. There he sat, accompanied by his beta and a stunning stranger boasting cascading crimson locks and pale sapphire irises. That unbearable visual triggered a vicious territorial instinct, forcing a savage, guttural rumble directly from her jaws. Every head pivoted her way, snapping the chatter into dead silence. "What is that?" the newcomer gasped, visibly spooked. Such unbelievable audacity stoked her wrath. She owned this territory as his partner. This interloper did not. Blind wrath and fierce possessiveness took over, launching her viciously across the rug with bared teeth, only for powerful muscles to snatch her straight out of the air, hauling her securely backward into a solid, heavily muscled torso. "Wait, is she?" The beta gasped, eyes blowing wide. "Indeed," the alpha purred, sounding deeply satisfied. Tucking her securely against his body, his intoxicating aroma and radiating heat miraculously snuffed out her raging internal inferno. "Easy there, sweetheart," he rumbled against her ear as her struggling ceased. "Settle down." Cutting off any potential interruptions from the shocked women, he ordered, "Get out." "Wait, sir," his beta protested. "Clear the room," he snapped, wielding a tone that obliterated defiance. "We require absolute privacy." Once the doors clicked shut, he tenderly set the shifter down, dropping gracefully to the rug beside her. She whimpered gently, her instincts violently clashing. Half of her fiercely wanted to attack him for considering another bride while belonging to her, while the other side frantically yearned to justify her secrets. Though terror paralyzed her limbs, he extended a remarkably unwavering palm. "Shh," he coaxed gently. "The intruders are gone, sweet girl. We are completely alone, just him and her." That absolute certainty eased her tense muscles. His gaze held that familiar, warm affection, yet an entirely new emotion heavily shadowed his eyes, a profound, mesmerizing reverence that completely paralyzed her lungs. He actually appeared thrilled by her presence. Defeated by her craving, she deliberately rested her snout heavily into his welcoming grasp. "Forgive me for abandoning you," he rumbled, threading clever fingers deep into her coat, instantly melting every rigid muscle across her exhausted frame. So wildly unfair. Remaining furious was completely justified, yet clinging to outrage proved impossible beneath his utterly intoxicating caresses. The agonizing gentleness of his hands brought literal physical pain. "But you will never be abandoned again, Bianca," he pledged with quiet intensity. "I swear it." A contented rumble escaped her before his actual statement clicked. Absolute dread turned her to stone. "You are truly the Winters heiress, yes?" he challenged knowingly. Frantic alarm spiked, urging her to scramble backward, yet his soothing palm remained securely anchored deep in her pelt. "Did my potential wrath terrify you?" His unwavering tone lacked any trace of hostility. He lacked any hint of rage, she frantically rationalized. Not a drop. Regardless, lifting her gaze to meet his felt entirely impossible. "Look up, please," he pleaded, utilizing a devastatingly tender whisper that completely robbed her lungs of oxygen. Yielding to his request, she dragged her vision upward, and her pulse utterly flatlined. His gaze washes over her as if she were sheer magic, something infinitely priceless, an illusion he dares not trust. Then the truth slams into her. His sight is back. "You cured my blindness," he whispers, his tone heavy with awe. "I kept questioning why you lingered in this place, why you never fled this bleak, hollow prison I am chained to. You had countless chances to run, but you remained. I figured you were just terrified, seeking shelter, but you were mending my body all along. You held on, just for my sake, right?" Her pulse races at the utter adoration in his words. He talks as if her actions were divine, treating her like the bestower of a priceless treasure. Naturally, leaving was never an option. She owed him that much. Her own kind had double-crossed his people and caused his suffering. Yet when he draws her against his chest, dropping sweet kisses onto her hair while whispering endless gratitude, an undeniable truth dawns on her. Curing his affliction was never her main motive. Her true reason was entirely self-serving. Walking away from him felt physically impossible. She craved his proximity too deeply. Easing back to catch her gaze, he gently cups her cheeks in his massive hands, a warm grin breaking across his features. "Hey there," he exhales, unshed moisture glimmering in his gaze. It finally registers that she is back in her two-legged form. Panic briefly flutters through her veins, though the feather-light stroke of his thumbs against her flesh sends a comforting tremble down her spine. "I tried to confess," she murmurs, noting how eagerly he absorbs the melody of her words. "I hated being trapped on four paws, yet terror held me back." Worry darkens his features instantly. She gives a hesitant nod, acknowledging that sheer fright had indeed paralyzed her. A sliver of that dread remains. However, exchanging actual words and having him perceive her true self makes confronting those demons entirely worthwhile. "You weren't the one I feared," she manages to choke out. "Actually, maybe I was," she admits, as toxic, agonizing flashes of her ex invade her thoughts. She simply refused to be played for a fool a second time. Placing her faith in the wrong hands was not a risk she could take. "Kate filled me in on your past," the Alpha rumbles softly. Her head snaps up in shock. His newly functioning irises are stunningly vivid and packed with emotion. Gaining back his vision seems to have completely resurrected his soul. Yet she cannot afford to drown in that gaze right now, not after dropping that bomb. "My sibling?" she questions frantically. "Kate found this place?" "Indeed. That is exactly why I stepped out before. She came hunting for you," he replies with a tender smirk. "I swore she could visit you very soon. She will be returning any minute." She bobs her head, deeply comforted by the prospect of reuniting with her sibling and clearing the air without triggering the Alpha's wrath. This entire situation should have her jumping for joy. "But listen," she says, cautiously holding his gaze while wrapping her delicate fingers around his. "Begging you, do not take that other female as your Luna." Moisture blurs her vision while the words tumble out. The crushing dread that he might reject her entirely easily eclipses her fleeting happiness. The agonizing possibility that he could pick someone else when their souls are clearly tied destroys her. "Sweetheart," he starts, a frown creasing his brow, but she refuses to hold back the truth any longer. "We are fated, Theo." Guiding his palm directly over her racing, frantic heartbeat, she claims him. "Your place is by my side." Astonishment flashes across his features before melting into a grin so profoundly sweet it physically hurts her soul. "I am well aware," he rumbles, the deep, fiercely territorial gravel in his tone sparking goosebumps all over her body. "You are?" she gasps, witnessing his serious nod. "I am," he repeats, his grin stretching wider. "I made it perfectly clear before. Olivia is a non-issue. You never have to stress over a single thing ever again, my heart. We belong to each other for eternity." He holds her cheeks as delicately as if she were spun from the finest, most fragile glass. The moment their mouths finally collide, her wandering soul finally finds its sanctuary. Epilogue. Recovery, surprisingly, operates like an ocean tide. Certain mornings are utterly flawless. Strolling the grounds with her fingers laced through her mate's, his intoxicating aroma cocoons her in pure, unadulterated security. He continually tracks her every step with absolute awe, as if still doubting she exists outside of a dream. Conversely, there are moments when the darkness violently resurfaces. During their first, truly passionate encounter, when his touch roamed low and pulled her flush against him, her inner beast forcefully hijacked her body in a heartbeat. Panic tore through her sanity, haunted by her ex's ghostly taunts claiming she was being played and utterly unloved. Yet her Alpha never forces the issue. He effortlessly drops to four paws right alongside her, his massive guarding frame shielding her petite stature. Sprinting beneath the towering forest canopy, The bonded pair race as one, completely unburdened by their previous traumas. Even with the immense demands of ruling their territory, he relentlessly ensures his Luna is cherished and utterly included. She's always by his side during pack business, their fingers secretly woven together beneath the desk. If tempers flare, he immediately seeks her gaze, sharing a quiet, reassuring smirk. After dark, innocent caresses soon give way to restless nights, the magnetic pull undeniable. The heady, masculine aroma of him envelops her senses, sending a deep thrill of desire straight to her inner beast. Gentle brushes of the mouth become heavy, desperate hungers. Their palms explore without hesitation, leaving her gasping against his mouth. "Theo, please," she begs. "I have to have it all." "You're absolutely certain?" he breathes, trapping her with his muscular frame, blazing warmth radiating between them. His sheer willpower shakes his core, restraint slipping away while his fingertips trace her silhouette, coaxing her to press upward into his fiery embrace. As they finally merge, sheer ecstasy blurs her vision, filling an empty void she had long ignored. One night turns into countless encounters, their mutual hunger utterly insatiable. Caught up in their euphoric bubble, they nearly skip out on Kate's sudden dash to the delivery room. Yet Bianca refuses to abandon her sibling during such a monumental moment. She grips Kate's palm through the contractions, witnessing Ryder's absolute elation while holding his newborn baby girl. Staring at the precious infant, Bianca catches Theo gazing back at her, his expression radiating future vows. "I need a baby," she murmurs later in bed, prompting a grin bright enough to banish their lingering shadows. The evening she reveals they are expecting, he finally claims his mate, sinking his fangs into her throat while their pup flourishes inside her. Biting back, she seals the bond, even if his soul belonged to her from the moment they crossed paths in the shadows. "My heart is yours," she confesses, observing the dusk wash everything in shimmering amber. As the baby flutters in her womb, Theo cups her knuckles. "I know," he replies, his expression radiating a security she once believed impossible. Together, they mend their shattered pieces. The man broken by Silas's cruelty, and the woman nearly destroyed by his deceit. Rising from the ruins, they forge an unbreakable, genuine bond. Ultimately, that defines true recovery. It isn't about erasing past traumas, but finding the light again. It means braving affection despite the agony. Regardless, I really appreciate you all tuning in. Hopefully this tale brought you joy, whether for the first or second time. It is an older piece, yet a personal favorite I needed to adapt into a visual format. That being said, an exclusive epilogue is up on my Patreon at absolutely no cost. Tap the link down below to hear it. Wishing you the best.